All right. It's going to be a good one, Shawn.
It sure is. It absolutely
Oh, yeah.
is. Yeah. This is the one you've been waiting for.
This is the one. Episode 6. 6. No, it's just episode 6, but it is the Headless Nun. Oh, yeah. So this is going to be a really fun one because we're going to talk about the legend. But many podcasts and many movies have been made. Not all of them finished. Jimmy McKinley, you know what I'm talking about. About the Headless Nun. And we'll talk about the legend, of course. But we're going to share a lot of personal experiences because we're the guys who have been at the Headless Nun tour. The Dare the Dark Headless Nun experience, which you all should go on. Everybody, I don't care where you are right now. I don't care if you're in North Korea and you're listening to this somewhere on the dark web starving to death. You should escape right now. Come on our tour. It's worth it. It's worth it. All right, Shawn. So let's dig in deep. First of all, the story, the legend. Where does it start?
So the legend itself is set in the 1750s. The first time that we hear of it probably happens about 50 or 75 years later. It's the first time that there's any record of it actually being told. But yeah, set in the 1750s, at the time of the 7 Years' War, the Acadians have sought refuge here, fleeing from the deportation. Now it's said that they've gathered up all of their valuables and put them in the care of a young nun, Sister Marie. Now they say Sister Marie in canoe, but that's Sister Marie the Unknown. So that to me sounds like Sister Jane Doe. So I'm going to say Sister Marie.
Sister Marie. Makes sense. There was definitely a sister named Marie from France at that time. So, and again, we'll talk about the historic elite. Should we talk about them right off the bat? The people who say that there was no religious order at that time.
That's true. So yeah, they'll maintain that there won't be a religious order in this community until 1869, which, certainly is true, but nothing to say that there wasn't
of course not.
A nun or a woman that was maybe very pious and holy, but and is viewed upon in that way, but maybe doesn't actually have religious orders. We touch upon all these things in Best Left Buried, Tales from French Fork Cove, a book that you should also buy. There's certainly as you say, an elite that says that this never happened, and this is all just a legend. But it's certainly, if it's not a legend, it's set against historical events.
Oh, of course. And there is priests at this time, the missionary priests, of course, are here. So I'm thinking they're going to haul in the nuns too, because again, I have 2 aunts, both passed away now, God rest their soul, both nuns who did a lot of hard work for the church. And a lot of the heavy lifting those days was done by the sisters. And I'm thinking one of the jobs that they would have been responsible for, and we're going to get into this with the actual story, is delivering babies, because nuns at that time always seemed to have some sort of nursing experience or medical or something like that. So in those days, they're not going to have a priest down at ground zero, ready to just to grab that head, pull it out of that vagina. They're not going to have, a priest in that position. So I'm thinking
they'll come in at the baptism and not before.
They'll come in at the baptism. They won't be there for the dirty work, trust me. And this is not me, shitting on the Catholic Church, but this is just stating facts, just spitting truth. So that's the thing I always bring up. It's like for births and stuff like that, they want to make sure that, that baby gets there alive. Otherwise, you're in limbo. You're in limbo, Shawn.
That's right.
Limbo's around in those days.
Yes, indeed. Recently closed, but
they closed limbo.
Yeah,
Can you believe it?
They did.
If you don't know what limbo is, Google it.
Yeah.
All right. So now, So the Sister Marie is here. She's very well loved by the community. She's helping everybody. It's how the story goes. And she's entrusted with this treasure, which might have been valuables from the Acadians. But again, the other side of that story, these are refugees, people on the run, not the richest of the rich, not like they have a lot of gold and diamonds lying around in their pockets. So the thing that we like to surmise, the most valuable thing they would have had would have been the gold from the church at that point, the communion chalices, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So we know in September of 1758, James Murray sailed up the Miramichi River, destroyed the settlement at what is today Burr Church, or Esconobadich. It gets its name from the fact that he burned the church when he got there and found that nobody else was around. He took all of the livestock and he burned everything. So it's thought that the Acadians saw him coming. The priest, Father Bonaventure, I think Henry Bonaventure, probably took the crucifix and the chalice out of the church at that time and brought them with him. And the idea, is that he would have given those things to Sister Marie to hide. So again, as you say, the crucifix and the chalice certainly would have been made out of, if not gold, certainly some other precious metal, and probably would have had, precious stones set into them at that time for sure.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, that's it. So Sister Marie, she's the only one who, she's given this treasure to bury somewhere. So she's the only one that knows the whereabouts of it. But lo and behold, in this small town where gossip is rampant, even back then, that hasn't changed. Sister Marie, somehow the story gets out that this nun knows where this treasure is buried.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so there are two different versions of the story as to whether or not, it is a couple of leprous sailors, or perhaps it is a madman living in the woods, a trapper, a deserter of some kind. So I think the earliest versions of the story speak about a trapper. Later versions talk about a pair of leprous sailors, but regardless, they find out they want this money for some purpose or another, and they set upon they set upon the idea of basically extorting it from Sister Marie through force.
Of course, yeah. So if you have leprosy, and if you don't know what leprosy is, that's why I'm holding on to this right here. We have a number of severed limbs, which our producer, Creepy Dave, was so good at rearranging here for our lovely set. And leprosy, basically you get warts and sores and things like that on your arm, and your limbs basically start rotting off. So you could see people are trapped here with this horrible disease. They're being shunned by the community. There's no way to treat this. People are being sent over to Sheldrake Island. This is the story that we tell on the tour. It was a actual leper colony, and for many years after, was it not?
Yeah, I mean, really kind of only formally, in later years, but it's reasonable at this time to think that, you're going to send this, what you believed at the time to be a very communicable disease, you're going to move people as far away from the camp as you can.
Exactly. You don't want people to get sick with this thing. And let's jump a little bit more into the leprosy. The story we tell about that is basically that, a mysterious ship, like something straight out of Dracula, arrives here on the Miramichi, and Mr. Shawn McCarthy, the Francophone, will tell the name of that ship because I can't pronounce it.
Right. So the story goes that the ship L'Indien de Morlaix is coming from the Eastern Mediterranean with goods. And I don't know, Tom, it's been a while since I read it, but I don't know if it was on its way here or it just sort of was wrecked here, or storm blew it in, or whatever.
That's the version I heard. The version I heard was the storm actually blew. It wasn't even supposed to come here. The hand of God, the storm, pushed it into Miramichi Bay, and it was shipwrecked there. And these Acadian people came along upon this ship, and they have nothing at this point. They're on the run. Whatever homes and farms they have are long gone and burned to the ground. So they started going through the rubble, looking for something, looking for food. And they say there wasn't much food, but there was crates and crates of blankets, old woolen blankets, good thick ones to keep you warm. Because we haven't said this yet, but we say it every podcast. Where are we? We are in Miramichi, New Brunswick, on the Atlantic coast of Canada. It is a cold place, very cold, but even colder back in those days when you don't have a proper home or anything like that. So they scrounge up these blankets and start handing them out amongst the community. And, everybody's happy for a little while, but then eventually they notice, they get some sores on their hands and limbs. And after a while, it just starts to rot off, doesn't it?
Leprosy. Yeah, well, leprosy, it attacks your nerves. You can't tell that, you've been wounded and those wounds get infected. And then, of course, everything kind of goes from there. So that's it. And it said, that there were two of these sailors from aboard the ship had been, quarantined, and they decided to escape one night, and they figured that if they could get this treasure, they could buy their way back to France and, kind of live out their lives somewhere in seclusion back in their homeland.
Interesting, yep. Now that's the story that we tell on the tour. So these guys, they kill the nun, leave the dead body behind, but it's called the Headless Nun for a reason, because they cut her head off with a sword or an axe or something, and a headless body is found there at the cove.
That's right. So, the body is taken back to France for burial, but the head is never recovered. And so the story goes that the headless ghost of Sister Marie roams the cove, still protecting that treasure, still searching for the head that will one day make her body whole and allow her to rest in peace.
All right, so now we'll fast forward a little bit. That's the 1700s into the early 1800s, that story. Eventually the cove gets developed, doesn't it? It becomes quite the industrial hub. We love an industrial hub here in the Miramichi, don't we? The land of mills. We've never seen a mill that we didn't get hard over. And that's what they did back in those days, didn't they?
They did. Yeah. They did. So there was a mill there, I think, in the 1820s, and then really most famously, French Fork Cove is known for its stone quarry, the Charles Fish Head, and stones from that quarry are part of the Langevin block in the legislative buildings in Ottawa. Also part of, I think, St. James Church in Montreal. So again,
they're all over the country.
All over the world. All over the country for sure. And it's interesting that at the time, I think, and we tell this story on the tour in 1886, when they're doing some work in the stone quarry, they find some bones in the cave, including a skull.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. They find a skull, and it's quite small. They believe it belonged to a child, or back in those days, again, a young girl, particularly during a time of famine. Probably not a real developed skeleton, so it's easy to believe that might have actually been the head of Sister Marie that was found all those years ago. But what's really interesting, how the story goes, is that once that skull was found, things weren't all chipper at the cove, were they? No. Creepy stuff started happening.
Yeah, exactly. The phone at the fish quarry office started to ring uncontrollably all night. And I mean, this is 1886. I mean, the phone is a pretty new invention. So
their phone number was 3.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's it. There's probably, you could probably count the number of phones on the river on one hand with fingers left over. So why is it ringing? The lights are coming on, at all hours. There's an electrical explosion inside of the. All of these things mean that eventually the skull is returned to its resting place, and then apparently all of these strange phenomena stop.
They cease for a while. And then, again, the fact that there's treasure buried there, people will go to any lengths to find some money, won't they? So, and there's all sorts of treasure hunting stories about the place, but the one that gets told the most is about a fellow named Paddy Perry, who was hunting for that treasure. And that's a character who you played very much over the years. And so what are all of the versions of that?
So kind of, I guess, the kind of general version is that Paddy Perry is an Irish fellow who comes here to the community, hears about the treasure, and decides that he's the boy that's going to find it. And so he goes in, he has some sort of strange encounter with the nun, and then just sort of driven out of the area. Now, of course, we've played with that over the years, you and I both. And, whether that stops him, whether that turns him into some kind of a crazy Ralph figure, whether that turns him into some sort of, almost a Gollum figure that, he's after the treasure and nobody else can get it and it's only his. That's it. We've kind of all played with that. Now, Louise Manny, a great historian from the community, says that her father knew a fellow by the name of Pierre Poirot, Perriot, who basically, in order to get work, changed his name to Paddy Perry, because there's more work for an Irishman in Miramichi than there is for an Acadian. And he claims that he's the guy that's, the legend is based around. He went in, he knew where the treasure was buried, or found it some kind of way, and apparently found the treasure, was about to receive, then something came out of the woods and attacked him, drove him out of the cove, and when he came back the next day, there was no sign that he had ever been there.
Interesting.
No hole, no shovel, no nothing.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
So yeah, he was a friend of Louise Manny's father and told this story to Louise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. I might have read that years ago, but it's been a while. But because we've taken elements of that for the tour.
Yeah.
So definitely, it's come across our radar. So again, should we jump ahead now to a little bit more of the current day? I guess many spooky things have happened at the Cove
Sure.
over the years. I'm thinking there's these other stories too. I remember a local postmistress at the post office told us about walking at the Cove and seeing these soldiers dressed in old 1700s military uniforms. And, at first she thought there was some sort of reenactment or a movie or commercial getting filmed or whatever. But yeah, these guys stared her down and started marching towards her and then just faded away or whatnot. So
That's right.
And people have heard gunshots there, like old-time musket fire, cannonballs even. And yeah, speaking of cannons, that leads us to another story. Lord Beaverbrook, who we mentioned in the past, back when he was just Max Aitken playing there with his brother, they found an entire cannon at the Cove.
Yeah.
So what'd they do? Boys will be boys. They rolled this cannon all the way back to the family home, and the old minister, the Reverend William Cuthbert Aitken, wanted nothing to do with it, said, get it out of here. It's a weapon of death. Take it to the county dump. Go say your prayers. What'd they do? They didn't listen to dear old dad. The moment he was away, they hid it in the attic. Years and years would pass. They were kids, short memories. They forgot about everything. Lord Beaverbrook comes back, buys up that old house, and is ready to turn it into a library. He's a British lord now with lots of money. Finds that old cannon and gets a great idea. Let's take that over to Fredericton and fire it off to celebrate UNB, the university that just made me chancellor, and all that sort of thing. And big ceremony held over there in the provincial capital. But what happens to that cannon? It backfires and almost blows off his beautiful bald head. But it does not. He survives. And the story that they would spin around here was that, either, depending what language you speak, the cannon was just an old piece of junk and it was bound to happen. But the French-speaking folk like to say that that's because it was a Acadian cannon trying to get in one last shot at a British lord. So
There you go. Yeah.
So, all right. So we're moving along here in time. Is there any other stories from... Before we start with our personal experiences, and that's going to be a lot. It's going to the second half of this one. Get ready, folks.
That's where the meat of the story is.
The meat of the story, yeah. Because again, there's dozens or maybe 100 podcasts and stories and YouTube things you can watch about the Headless Nun. But what you're going to get right now are the guys who've been behind the lines for over 20 years.
Yep,
who have seen a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. So
in '99, I think, is when the Cove Commission starts the Headless Nun tour.
This isn't good.
So, Tom, did you ever go on the tour before we ended up doing it?
You know what? I never did.
Okay.
No, did you?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've got an uncle and aunt. My uncle Colin, my aunt Jane, who live in Alberta. So they would come home and we'd kind of do, touristy things with them. So we went. And in those days, we'd start on the Cove Road side. We'd just go down to the bridge and we'd come all the way back.
Okay. And the Nun led the tour? Is that the time? Or is that
I don't think the Nun led our tour.
Okay.
But I think there was, kind of at some time the Nun did. Because I remember.
Which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? A nun with a head, who is the Headless Nun, apparently, is now leading the tour and telling you the story. And,
yeah. It's a little strange. But yeah, I think at that time, it was being run by either it was a local drama club or it was the community college, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, it was, I guess, in partnership with the Cove Commission. It wasn't a bad time, as I recall. You got a lot of swag from it. I remember, everybody got a bag and there was stuff inside of it.
This just screams government grant, doesn't it?
Probably that was probably a big part of it. Yeah. So that was my only experience before. I guess I did a couple of guest spots in 2003.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you were there before I was, because the first year that I did it was 2004, alongside yourself and our good friend, the late Josh Holland.
Yep.
The guy.
That's it.
And that's the guy who really took that tour and, revitalized it.
That's it. I mean, the tour would not be what it is today without Josh. He was the guy that came up with the idea, rather than going to the bridge and coming back, let's do a circuit. We still do a circuit today. It's not as big a circuit as we used to do, but it's still the idea of you don't want to...
Because we're getting old. In the words of Josh, you're getting old, man.
But you don't want to go back over the stuff that you've already seen.
Yeah.
So so that's it. He was the first to have that. He was the first to have a tour guide that was really kind of a character rather than just sort of a means of information. And and rather than kind of having summer students do it, let's hire some actors and do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and Josh was a creative genius, a guy who really understood horror and the small, subtle things you could do with a very limited budget and no budget at all, as a matter of fact. And he broke his ribs on a tour, did he not?
He did.
Putting so much into it physically, yeah.
You know. Of course, I think we all
suffered injuries.
In our day,
my knees crack when I climb the stairs now, all thanks to the damage I did throwing myself onto some gravel road. But it was worth it to scare those kids. Because there's kids talking to psychologists today because of the leper I was. The leper was the enforcer in those days. Yes. Because again, we were on our own with little to no support. So we were everything on that tour. And we had some troublemakers show up from time to time, did we not?
Did we ever? Holy Moses! Like I said before we went live here, there was the Wild West there. In those early years, you know, different times the police would show up.
Oh yeah, And this doesn't look sketchy at all. You've got a dirty shovel in the trunk of your car with severed limbs like this, and we're covered in fake blood. You know what I mean? And it just looks dodgy as hell.
Yeah. Plus, like I say, there was a lot of other people that were there too.
There was.
Sometimes they would involve themselves in our tour. Sometimes they were just sort of there. I remember, of course, a lot of the times we'd have kind of the post-game show, you and I and Josh sitting in the parking lot talking
for
about
an hour or more.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that same 2 or 3 cars would circle the area, drive through the parking lot, slow down, and then just keep on going. Clearly they were there for, some business.
Shenanigans.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah. Crazy wild times. So that's 2004. Scott Payne was the other guy on that tour who I lost track of over the years, but what a guy. I'm thinking, climbing trees, setting props underneath the bridge. This guy was all over the place, and he risked life and limb to create a really memorable experience.
The effects wizard, really, of the whole of the experience. Wiring lights and all this other stuff. So he was great. Yeah.
All right. So the year after that, 2005, and that was a hell of a year as well. That's when Creepy Dave, the man behind the camera, also joined us as the tour guide that year and did a hell of a job. We were just saying to him earlier, he really created his own character. And really controlled the audience and really had a great feel for everything that was getting done. Yeah, and that was a very productive year, was it not? It was.
It was. 2004, I think, at that point had been the best year they'd ever had, and 2005 was better than that again.
Wow.
So that's it.
Yeah, no, we were going strong there for a while, and then 2006, bit of up and down stuff happened, wouldn't you say?
I would. The wheels started to come off the wagon there in 06 for various reasons. And that was the year we kind of made our first pitch to try to take it under our own, control.
And that's when we ran up against, and if you're wherever you are in the world watching this, if you're in a small town, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of gatekeepers. There's a lot of people that don't want, even the best person for the job or the hardest working person for the job, or they don't want you in that position. And that's what it came down to. We were, so passionate about this, and we would have, really taken it places. But for whatever reason, we weren't allowed to do that. So, the Nun tour suffered because of it.
The tour went dormant really after 07. And was down for 2 years, in 08 and 09. It wasn't running at all, and kind of came back again in 2010 with the help of Miramichi Landings, and then would run from 2010, I think, right up until 2017, 2018, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, and then, of course, COVID happens, and, because it was worse than leprosy, wasn't it? Things take a turn, nothing happens, and we resurrected it. And that's my religious reference to we resurrected it. Because some people, we'll talk about this too, don't like the idea of the Headless Nun tour, do they? They think we're making fun of the Catholic Church or making fun of religion. Hey, look at my fucking arm. And this guy, the doctor of history here, is the most loyal Catholic you'll find. And so, yeah, some people thought that they were...
no, for sure. There was some pushback over the years that the tour was somehow anti-Catholic or something like this here. But we always made the point that the nun was never a villain in our story.
She's a hero.
Yeah.
A tragic hero. And again, that's the story that we keep telling to this day, is that she's protecting that treasure. Because again, if it is the chalice which held the blood of Christ, that's something that she's really willing to lay down her life for. So we are always painting the nun as this... character that should be honored and remembered and respected, but some people are just too dumb or too cheap to buy the ticket and come on the tour and actually see what we do.
Now, I don't mean to disagree with you, but one of the chief ladies who was opposed to the tour did actually
come. Okay, so we got money at least. That's a good thing. Yeah,
paid bought a mug. Is that
Well, there you go.
And
so you
like I say,
she was okay.
I don't think so. I don't think she cared for it. But I'll give her all the credit in the world. She came and she saw. She didn't. She didn't. Just sort of based on her own understanding condemn us. She took it in. She made her own conclusions. I don't agree with those, but at least, like I say, she had the gumption enough to say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to come and watch it." That's it.
But we're not stopping anytime soon. In the
words
of Eric Bischoff, controversy creates cash. So another wrestling reference for this show.
Yeah. No, I think most people that go on and understand, what it is. It's a legend. It's a story. It's not meant as some sort of political commentary, or whatever the case may be.
All right. So, now in recent years, we've resurrected the Headless Nun tour and the haunted happenings we have here in the Miramichi area all around Halloween season. We've been at that since, 2022 was the first year, was it?
That was the first year, that we brought it back.
We did, as Character Matters, the company that we're part of.
Exactly.
So we did that at Halloween, and we run it in the next 2 summers after that, haven't we? 2023 and 2024, along with special Halloween tours. And got a good response, from people all across the globe. We've had people from Canada, the United States, England, Germany, as far away as India have come on this tour. So we're grateful to all those people. And we have more to come here in 2025, don't we?
No question about it. Yeah. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, July, August, and of course, like I say, the special tours in October. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's been great since we have such history with the tour to be able to kind of, again, if only for ourselves, but also for maybe some others that have been following us that long, we kind of were able to kind of inject a few little Easter eggs in there for people that have been, aware
for sure.
At a time.
Yeah, and everybody does bring something special, something unique every single year that joins the cast. So it changes and evolves. So if you saw it, a couple of years ago, it doesn't mean it's the same tour. You should definitely come again.
And that's something I think that we've always tried to do from 2004 on, as every year try to have something that was a little bit different, and to change it up so that people can.
Not like in the old days when the powers that be did not want us to use the term "new tour."
That's right. That's right.
Because that would imply there was something wrong with the old tour.
Yeah. No, that was certainly a struggle for sure in those times. Yeah.
All right, so that's our tour, but the Headless Nun is more than just a tour, more than a story. It's been a movie a couple of times.
A few times.
And a TV show. Yeah. So where do you want to start, Shawner?
Well, let's start. Yeah. Well, let's start with Jeff Chris's community college, version of the story,
which I was not a part of. Yeah, but you were, and you as well, Creepy Dave.
That's right.
I was in it, and
exactly.
Yeah,
and
it was a grip.
Yeah,
Dave was a grip.
That's right. Yep. Dave and I were related in that film.
Okay.
Dave played my father.
Okay. And Dave is what, 2 months older than you?
Something like that. Yeah.
And Shawn is taller.
Yeah. Which looks older. So this makes no sense unless they had some very good makeup, which tell me they did.
I wish I could, Tom. I wish I could. No, it was a great experience. It was a lot of fun. You know what I mean? But it was very much it was what it was. You know what I mean? I bear no ill will to anybody over it. It was, like I say, it was a fun experience. We were in grade 10, I think.
Yeah.
You know, so that's it. We didn't know what we didn't know. But
to be young
but
and
yeah.
stupid again.
Well, there you
Not
go.
old
That's
and
it.
Jaded.
Something.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Because
For
it
sure.
provided nonstop comedy
That's
during
right.
the shooting and
That's
after.
right. Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the height point that Dave brings up was particularly an issue when we were supposed to do a jump scare of some kind where Dave was in the fridge looking for something because his wife, my mom, Brandy Mills.
He was a year older than you.
That's right, exactly.
Maybe two?
Two, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. You know, was apparently had some sort of psychic connection with the nun, and so would have like these nightmares. So anyway, he was down in the fridge looking at whatever. So closed the door, and I was going to be standing there. Jump scare. The problem is, of course, Dave and I are both taller than the door, you know, so we can clearly see one another over the top of the door. So it was certainly interesting in that way.
We shot it in the daytime, I think.
We also did. That's it. Yes, we did do that. And you were supposed to curse, I think. And then they told you not to do that, even though it was in the script, because they were looking for a G rating on this whole thing.
Right.
Which a
Yeah,
G-rated
think about
Headless
that.
Nun.
A G-rated Headless Nun. Yeah.
Anyway.
Because this thing's going so far. You know, it's going to be competing with the Lion King. It's got to get a G rating. Right.
Anyway, that's it. But yeah, so anyway, it was certainly interesting. We shot a lot at the Cove. We were supposed to, I think the chalice was supposed to be the item that was in the treasure at that time, but they were going to put it in later digitally.
And what year is this?
This is 2001?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it. But yeah, anyway, it was a great story to tell after the fact, even though obviously it didn't go anywhere. I think it was in the paper though. I think there was like an article I remember there was like all of us there, you know, as if this was going to be some big thing. It was not, unfortunately, but like I say, it makes for a good story after the fact. Do you have anything to add?
No. I wish I could see it though.
It would be fun to see. Absolutely would be fun to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Suck on that Werther's a little harder, Dave.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So the next one then is the Creepy Canada episode.
I believe
was
so,
it?
yes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So this one I was a part of, and as Shawn was saying off camera, he was jealous he wasn't a part
I
of
was
it.
so
Yeah.
jealous.
And I gotta say, this was, of the three things we're going to talk about, this was probably the best one. Not to put myself over, but this one got done. This
did.
one got finished. Again, you can probably find it on YouTube. You definitely can. Somebody said in the comments, "Oh, there's a Headless Nun Outdoor Life Network episode as well." So it's out there somewhere if you go hunting. Again, is it? You know, it's not Daniel Day-Lewis level acting by any means, but you know, it was what it was, and it was a fun time. It was my first experience actually working on a professional set with these guys, and very small. I remember it was like a director, an AD who was also a grip, who was also a props guy, and a girl who was pretty much makeup and lighting, and you know, and I think there was a guy who was sound, and that was pretty much it. There's these four people, and yeah, so it was wild. It was like a very guerrilla style filmmaking experience. I remember I drove these folks around to show them Miramichi and stuff like that, and drove them into the Cove with that big '87 Oldsmobile at the time.
That's right.
Yeah. And I play one of the two lepers in the show. If you find it, I'm the killer, the one, the guy with the big machete, and it was a real machete. And we practice cutting off the head of the girl who's playing the nun, who just so happened to be the daughter of a town police officer. So no pressure. You're holding a real machete to this girl's neck while her dad watches, because he was part of it as well.
He was Patty, wasn't he?
He was,
Yeah.
Dewey. And he even joked, whatever, just so you know, I'm a cop. And but yeah, it was a fun time. I still remember throwing that head off of the bridge at the Cove there, and throwing it so many times. And they got me to throw it like you're in the NBA. So I actually did throw it, the basketball, and that's the shot they picked. Can you imagine? Because I practiced, I walked with the head and stared at it, doing my dramatic acting sort of thing, and I had it under my arm at some point, and then I was really, creepy in there with the head. And they picked the most foolish shot they possibly could, but whatever. Funny story I have about those guys. Phil is the name of the guy who was the prop / ED, whatever he was. Just this older guy, just chain smoking all the time. Mm-hmm. He's from the Terrapons. Phil from the Terrapons. And I remember we were talking about how to get the cutaway shot to get blood appearing. I'm like, how do we do this? You know what I mean? They practice spraying it different ways and stuff like that. I'm like, Phil, you got any ideas? And this guy's been around the block. He's like, condom full of blood. That'll do it. Like, really, Phil? You think that'll work? He's like, oh, it'll work. Trust me. Very interesting. So that's what he did. Filled a condom full of blood and hit it with the machete. And sure enough, it made a good splash effect on the rocks there at the cove. So, yeah, interesting time it was. But, the episode is out there. So if you want to go searching for it, Outdoor Life Network, the Headless Nun episode from, fun times.
Yeah.
Back in 2005. So, what's next?
You know what's next, huh?
I know what's next. A movie called Spirit Cove, which had high hopes, aimed high, and really did not achieve those heights. All
no. So I think that kind of got started in...
I need a drink for this.
Sure. That all got started, maybe would have been the tail end of 2007 was the first that we heard of it, but then it got done. I think
you're right. Yeah. The filming got done the summer of 2008. I remember that summer very well, but for many reasons. But it started sometime in the fall talking about it, but the summer filming got done 2008.
So I guess it was a little bit more in common with the Creepy Canada one in that it was set in the time. The 2001 one that we were talking about before was kind of set in the modern time with the Headless Nun as sort of a Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, sort of monster that was out there. Although I don't think they treated her that way, but it was more that sense. But this one was going to be set in the time. I think originally it was going to be kind of half and half. There was going to be some that was set in the 1780s or 1750s, and there was going to be some in the modern time. Because I think when I was cast originally, I was Chuck, a guy that was.
Oh yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, there was supposed to be like I think a more modern found footage version or something. But
so how did you get involved with it originally? Because I think you got into the ground floor, did you not?
I was.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I wish I could remember. How did I? Jimmy McKinley and myself, hi Jimmy, were very on at the ground floor. Now Jimmy was the director and did write a script for it, and the producer who turned into the director and the and the guy who took over everything. I was. Again, I wish I could know how I got involved in that, like who reached out to me or how to hear about it but I remember conversing by email with the 3RB team, the company that was making this thing, and Jimmy very early on. So I started, I think, higher up there, but I do remember by the end of it, you were much more featured than I was.
Well, because I had to audition, and I was Chuck, but then they had the lunch party at the goodie shop that time, and they told me then that I had been written out.
Okay.
That my character was no longer a part of the script because they revised the script a few times.
More than a couple times, yeah.
So, because I remember Jimmy telling me, a little bit about what he had in mind, and it was quite a bit different than what eventually ended up happening. So, and then when we went to sign the contracts at that time, I remember saying I wouldn't sign because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yes. I remember I couldn't sign right away either because I had an agent at the time in Halifax, and I just wanted to make sure, because I got in trouble before for signing stuff I shouldn't have signed. So I want to make sure, like, okay, I just got to check with them. I had a cutout to call them or something. And lo and behold, I think that's when the talking about me behind my back started, that I thought I was too big for the production or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so anyway, I ended up, I was the murderer.
You were the murderer. You were
that's
the
it.
guy. So the leper who doesn't have leprosy at this point, you're more the mad trapper.
That's right.
But you are
That's
not. You're not a raggedy mad trapper at all. You look good, Shawn. You look so fucking good. You're dressed in white. You
Yes.
are ready to say Easter Mass at this point. The white is immaculate. It is so clean. I couldn't get over how white it was.
Yeah, for a man who's been living in the woods.
living in the woods, yeah.
That's it, with my big wooden shoes,
Yes.
which
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
don't lend themselves to stealth either.
So not just for the Dutch, these uncomfortable wooden shoes were apparently an Acadian thing too, which you were forced to wear with your size 15 feet. And just so you know, I don't think they have wooden shoes that big for Shawn, but you fit into them somehow, eh?
I think they made them.
Oh, wow.
They had to make them for me.
Okay, so
and they were
they blew the budget on your shoes.
maybe so. Maybe I'm the problem. But yeah. So I will say at the time, I was really excited about the opportunity to kind of play off type, because at that point I don't think I had ever really been the heel in many things.
That's a wrestling term for villain.
Exactly. Yeah. So I hadn't been the bad guy, very often. So here was an opportunity to kind of play into that, and I guess as a sign of dedication, as you will recall, I dyed all my hair.
Did.
That's it.
Yeah, this guy dyed his blonde locks jet black to look like a proper Acadian from those times. And
Yeah.
Shawn, if you bend down just a little bit, it never grew back, did it?
No, I never did. Never did.
Permanently damaged the roots of his hair because he suffered for the art.
Well, either that or it was just simple male pattern baldness. But yeah, my hair never did grow back quite so much. But I remember that day you and I went to Caracat because they were filming at the Acadian Village, and that was we went. I think we had to go up through Bathurst, and that was the time when we saw the famous, and we never saw it again, the sign on the side of the road that advertised "shit for sale."
Shit for sale, yeah, which is a forerunner to this film, actually.
Well, anyway, somebody bought that shit though.
Oh, God, that's true. Whoever that farmer in Caracat was, he made more money off of that cow shit than anybody did with this film.
That's it. Yeah. But yeah, we went there, and I don't know. Again, I was probably inside of my own head way too much, and trying to kind of be like, oh, I'm a professional or whatever. But
But you were doing the work and you're prepared. No, it was. I'll fight you on that one because you were really in the zone. And like you said, the first time you play a villain, you were on another level. Some of the first times, like, whoa, he's really bringing it here. This was, something new, I should say, from you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I wanted to kind of stay away from everybody because I figured if I'm
Yes.
supposed to be this guy that everybody's scared of, you know what I mean? It's going to be easier to play that if we're not talking and laughing and doing whatever, And again, I freely admit that I took that from Richard Brooker, Ted Knight, Ted, whatever his name was, that was, Jason, that's it. Yeah, so I mean, I tried to kind of do that. I don't think that was something that was really appreciated.
No, that's when they start talking about you.
Yeah,
So, then they moved up the ladder a little bit. Like, oh, Shawn's difficult to work with. He's worse than Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we drove home because you and I and another fellow.
Shawn Sonia, shout out to you, Shawn. I see that you're doing the old job I used to do for Taste Vancouver Food Tours.
Okay, good.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Who is a great company to work for. I can't say enough good things about Taste Vancouver.
It's a wonder we weren't killed, on that trip home. You know what I mean?
It's a wonder they're not dead.
Well, it really was. You know what I mean? Like the two of you were asleep, and
Yes.
I was fighting sleep all the way home.
Yeah, I don't know why I was so tired. It was just
That's
we didn't do anything.
We
It was
did
just a
not.
draining day. It just destroyed us.
Because they didn't shoot you at all.
They didn't shoot me at all, and that was a reoccurring thing where I would show up. That happened a couple of times, and when they finally did shoot me, it was a mess. You know what I mean? I got there, and it was they gave me like a bag of sticks. It was supposed to be like a dead rabbit or something.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm like stroking this, and I've got, I'm doing like, it's so hard to keep from doing a British accent because I've done so many British accents at that time. But like, dark Acadian. So okay, I'll do a bad French accent. I don't give a damn. And Jimmy McKinley says it best. It was a bad Headless Nun movie and an offensive Acadian movie.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they only shot me to pick up the axe.
Yes.
That was the only thing I did. And yeah, and it was, like I say, it was a full day though. So yeah, we were all quite tired.
Yeah.
But that was it.
That was it.
I came back one day in October to film like the murder of the nun, and yeah, that was pretty much the extent of it. Obviously, Shawn was in much more of it, and there were several other people that were kind of in the bulk of the film. But you and I were kind of on the outer orbit.
We were.
Yeah.
So I think we'll stop there about this movie because
Yeah.
down the road we're going to do an uncensored cut.
Sure,
Hopefully,
yeah.
Patreon.
Yeah.
When we launch that, it's going to be a while from now, probably. But yeah, we'll talk about this thing inside and out because maybe bring in some people who were there behind the wire a little longer than we were because But yeah, what a time! So much potential this story has. But we're going to keep going with it and try to do it justice as much as we can. We're going to do it on the tours at least. We've got some other things in the works. I don't think we can talk about it at the moment, but there's some special Headless Nun things coming down the road.
Absolutely. And I guess to end these nun collaborations on a good note, it was great in 2012 to
Yes,
launch Best Left
absolutely.
Buried. You and I and Josh to each kind of write a story about the Headless Nun, and it was a lot of fun to do that.
It really was. And
Props
this
to
is-
Dave who did our cover.
Yeah, like look at that cover. That's I think the first time we really got a good horrific image of the nun.
That's true.
And the guy to thank is Creepy Dave, of course, the guy who took that picture and did all his artsy stuff to create that. And what we're wearing too, and on the mugs, this image, this illustration is also by David Jardine, the guy who finally brought the gore. I remember saying I wanted kind of that EC Comics look, and Dave nailed it. He did it. So check him out. Again, we're putting him over all the time. We're not going to stop. David Jardine, Coffee Doodles. He does crazy good work on coffee stains. You can see one behind us. He does illustrations for all sorts of books and logos, you name it. So he's going to be doing lots of work with us.
Absolutely.
And you probably noticed the severed limbs behind us. That's a tribute to the leper. Hey, it's an ear. Just fixing up the old bookshelf or something. Something different for this one.
Of course.
And it all stayed there, not like the Union Jack, which,
That's
yeah.
that's it. It was, I just say, I mean, it wilted pretty quickly.
It wilted pretty quickly, but the Headless Nun will not die.
This is very true. So come out and see us this
Yes.
summer. And of course, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that good stuff. If you're enjoying this, and of course, share it with your friends and help this community grow.
Absolutely. And I just realized, looking at my arm, and this was in the previous podcast too, because we do more than one of these in one day. I just realized I have this huge, look at that. Can you see that? That's a huge scar, but it's not
What happened to you?
leprosy. That, funny. My wife said, for the love of God, wear long sleeves or people will think you're doing heroin. That's not true. It's fentanyl. It's a fentanyl scar, but I got it from a doctor. I got shot up from a doctor for medical reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So,
yes.
I'm still alive.
For which we're all very grateful.
And so all I can say is, thanks to the doctor who looked after me very well. And I got shot up by a doctor and I survived. So I'm better than Michael Jackson. All right,
In so many
folks.
ways, Tom. In so many ways.
Well, now we can hashtag Michael Jackson now and see where this thing goes. Folks, just share the hell out of this, like always.
So for those of you that came because of the hashtag Michael Jackson, we're really sorry we disappointed you. that was it. That was all.
Very end. Hashtag fentanyl, too. Let's see where that gets us. Cheers, everybody.